400 dirhams. 400. 400. Anybody above 400? 400 baht.
Sir, sell him. Sir, give him. Give him for 400.
500 baht.
Sir, sell them. Sir, give them. Sir.
500.
Sir.
He's bidding 500. 1,000. Okay, he's saying 1,000. Now see, this is business girls.
Yes,
Without
sir.
knowing, you're bidding for something and you don't have any information.
And the amount you
And then
pay
you're
extra.
likely to lose money because in a competition, you're bidding. I think I have explained the point.
Yeah, sir. I'll discuss a third question now. Excuse me. Third question. According to economist theorists, bidders are likely to be more confident and more inclined to bid higher in an open auction than in a sealed bid auction. Why? This is very clear because in a sealed bid auction, you kind of pass tenders and everybody quotes their values, and when the tenders are open, the tender with the highest bid wins. So people are very less confident because they don't know what the other person has actually written in their particular tender. Because this all is happening behind closed doors, so there could be a possibility of manipulations also. Whereas in an open bid auction, everybody is bidding at that particular point of time, so they are more confident and more straightforward in putting on their bids. For
Example of this. Example of seed.
it was a closed bid. Shut up. Shut up.
Sir, it was, in the starting it was a close bid, but
It would be a closed bid, no? In such kind of things, they are closed bid. They disclose. After that, they always disclose, no?
seed bid first auction. Normally close bid happens in the government account. Yes. Normally private guys are, because they know, they want to get highest value. When can you get highest value? When it's a close bid. People will, the thing is, there's a very good, I think another chapter which is irrational sanity or something. Rational sanity. That is exactly on this. Rational sanity. What is taken right, sir?
And all those auction houses, Sotheby's and Christie's, they have open bid. I didn't understand your question. Why are you asking this question? Any closed bid are government sectors and all this.
How does this UK taxpayer benefited £500 each because government was expecting to get £300,000 on the auction and it got £3 billion in the open auction. That case is basically for you to read if you want to understand in more simple English. Otherwise, there are a lot of complicated models also available. But this one is interesting. That's why I give you a separate handout, which is not expected from the exam point of view, but it actually discusses what she has in mind. And I give you that in advance. I thought some of you might read it in advance.
If in a sealed bid auction there are multiple items to be given out, so if let's say I bid 100 and someone else bids 80, so if each person can only be allotted one item, so then I'm paying 100 because
Multiple items means what? Then there's different bidding.
no, suppose there are two licenses for the spectrum, like different airwaves, so each has a separate license.
So then each one will be auctioned first separately. Each one is a separate market.
But they've mentioned that at a time they've opened up a lot of frequencies.
So then, madam, there's a lot of possibility of manipulation. That is a problem. Different names. And in that case, there's also a case that if you like in the US, it happened. The auction process was rigged.
Yeah.
What happened? A lot of the multiple locations, things were going on. So people in the auction price last, they mentioned something else, 01 or 02, $3,000, 0.01. So 01 means my area is 01. You don't bid in that. So they were passing information to each other through that way. That 01 became the area code, which later on the regulator realized by the time they had lost a lot of money.
Where was the sealed bid?
Huh?
But anyways, it was a sealed bid auction. So.
It was not a sealed. Initially, it was an open bid. Also,
okay.
there also
Initially,
this particular chapter is about UK versus the US bidding process of the telecom right, and how US guys goofed up the whole thing. They didn't get any money, much money, and actually the other guys, they got huge amount of money. That is basically the case about, and how designing an auction is very, very important. You want to get really what you are expecting or more than what you are expecting. It has to be open. What is the advantage of the open auction? Like when the open auction of the purse was going on, since she valued 100, people had a feeling it must be more than 100 because she's already bidding 100. And nobody is the 150 because you know the other person and you know the other person's credentials. So what happens? The valuation will increase. But if it is a sealed bid, you don't know what the other guy, who may be the other company, you may be having a very good impression of the company, but you will not disclose the amount. So effectively, a lot of the information is hidden. And also, nobody really knows ultimately how much money you can make out of the spectrum right. So that's the future. And that depends on demand and all other things. So there's a lot of uncertainty. There's no, the product is not sure that this is what it means. In the data course thing, it's very clear that this is a steel company, this is what it was. That part is relatively clear. But in like spectrum right, things are much more unclear. That's why you need to have something like an open bidding system, open auction system that can really play wonders and then actually reduce everybody's tax liability, because the thing is, if government gets more revenue, obviously they'll expect less in terms of taxes. And the US in that year, for UK, the year it was done, every UK citizen got a tax credit of £500 each. You can imagine how much money was saved. Okay.
The fourth question, it talks about that in case of open bid auctions, there are many chances of collusion happening among the bidders. So the question says that would the amount collected be greater if collusion occurs between the bidders or if they actually bidded independently? So of course, if collusion occurs among the bidders, the amount collected could be more than if they acted independently, because if the collusion is occurring in the sense of competition, they could even bid higher. If they act independently, they would bid according to their estimates. But if a collusion is occurring, they could even bid higher than what they actually intended to pay, and hence the amount collected could be greater. And yes, if the number of bidders are also more, then also the chances of collusion is more, and hence the amount collected could be even greater. One more question left. It's E. This is the last question. This question says, one advantage of sealed bid auctions are open auctions. Over open auctions is, according to economist, is that collusion among buyers is deterred. Yes, this happens because in case of sealed bid, people don't know about the other person's bid, and so there is no chance of any collusion happening amongst them. But in case of open bid auctions, when people are actually giving their bids, there are chances of the competitive spirit occurring amongst the bidders, and chances of collusion is even more, and hence sealed bid auctions, collusion point is deterred. So why so? In case of open bid,
When you are bidding, I can always talk to my other people and bid accordingly. There is a open bid.
but sir, nobody would actually disclose their bid in that particular case. So a closed bid is because you're not actually,
So that government to collect.
yeah.
It say that you will not talk to each other.
So because you want to win, you would not want to tell your particular bid to the other person.
Everybody will publicly.
Yeah, open bid.
How will you be able to do it?
The open bid, because you're actually bidding at that particular point, there could be collusion occurring amongst people.
Actually, strictly speaking, in both the cases.
Okay.
So in the open case, like I said, the US, you are saying $10,000, 0.01.
Mm-hmm.
You're telling everybody else that I am bidding for 01 slot. Don't go for that. So even open one can be.
Okay. You wish.
There is a reason behind the people not disclosing on the sealed bid auction. The reason behind this is that every auction is accounting to a profitability. We cannot buy a purse worth 10 dirhams worth 1,000, which actually we cannot buy a purse which is of 10 dirhams for 1,000 dirhams. For example, if I and you bid for a closed bid option, and I say I bid and I say that I've bid it for 100 dirhams, but I come back to you and I say that I've bid it for 500 dirhams. So for you getting a deal, you will bid it for 600 dirhams. So the estimation error, However, the true value stands at 100 dirhams, but you bid it for 600 dirhams. So the
If there's only
probability
one
all the
purse,
more
yes.
goes less.
You're right, if there's only one purse. If there are 10 purses, which are going to be auctioned. If you don't help me, I'll not help you in the next one.
So, but
The
a person.
estimation error for the first would go so wrong that your probability
So
will
the
go all the rest.
next part, then again, you will get the same result as the open auction. You're saying there's only one purse. If there are 10 purses or there are 100 purses, then the possibility of collusion will be very high. But you're assuming there's only one purse. If I take everybody's purse and then I'm doing auctioning here, then I'll get an open system, will give you a better result than the closed system. Because transparent, everybody knows who is the other person valuing it, and you know other person only has extra information. This is how the oil wells are built in the open bid. You must have read about the Oman. Some company has bid and got the highest. It's Omanese company that has given the highest price for these Omanese oil fields, because they were foreign guys and they were only domestic guys. Now, if you have only domestic guys, price will be less. But foreign guys come in, means your bidding price will be higher because those guys may have some extra information. They might have done some satellite studies and all, and they know what this much oil is there, whereas the domestic company also doesn't have resources, has not done the thorough work. So that's why a lot of this trend across the world is to keep it open for the foreign companies. Like in India, we are doing now. We are keeping the oil field now open for the foreign companies. So that way the bidding is becoming higher. Although in India also just sealed bid. There's a lot of corruption and the backhand, which is a problem with those deals. Because the thing is, whatever you wrote inside what goes, nobody knows.
But sir, in sealed bid, you would never tell the exact amount you're bidding to your competitor. Why would you would never want that person to, if you wish to that person to win and the thing is not that good, then only you would tell, no?
You help me in this one, I'll help you in the other one.
Then why are you bidding if you don't want to win?
Open bid normally gives the information more quickly. And the price, the guy who's selling, the guy likes to get higher price. That is right. So, what happens, the thing is, suppose there are two people who are bidding for the same close to that first. If everybody knows everybody, then they say, okay, this guy normally keeps at least 100 dirhams. So then all of you, the people at least who know him, they will look at how his friends are bidding how much. So that is inside information. Whereas those who don't know him, they will say 20, I'll not give more than 20. A lot of people didn't give more than 20. So some people give more than 100 also. Somebody went even 1,000. Which means that guy possibly, one was the fun for the fun of it, sometimes like Joey. Other is basically, they know what his friends are bidding and they know, possibly those guys know that how much normally his first are. And that basically builds up the whole thing. But if you do a sealed bid auction, then a lot of this information doesn't go to everybody. So the guys who are his friends, they will bid high, but the guys but they will also bid only that much high, because they know other people don't even have that much information.
So then collusion shouldn't be happening in.
So both ways collusion can happen. That's why designing an auction is very, very important. It's a big business today. Designing an auction. So what are the joined designing, and there's a very famous German mathematician, and I'm forgetting his name, firstly is von Neumann, who was the that guy did not get a Nobel Prize because he was a mathematician, but he was the brilliant brain behind it, who actually created the whole problem of this auction, which now is applied to auction and all. It's basically game theory. And John Nash got a Nobel Prize because he applied it in his document.
Good afternoon, everyone. I have got problem number 2.9. There's a little bit of extra information given in this question I would like to share with you before I start with my answers. The FCC is a major federal regulatory agency, as you all know. Now, from mid-80s to the early 1990s, it approved over 1,000 new radio stations. And because of that, the radio station prices fell from around $6.2 million to around $1.8 million. This is the additional information given. And this is about an open auction that took place. Now, the first question is there a market for radio stations just as there is a market for wheat, corn or lamb chops? Well, I found out that there is a secondary market for radio stations. After a person has been auctioned, has been given the rights to a certain frequency, he can actually lease a part of the underused frequency to some other person who is in need of that. So, examples could be nationwide cell phone companies, news organizations and airports also. Now, moving on to question B, did the FCC contribute to a fall in the price of radio stations? If so, how? Now, I would like to explain this with the help of a graph. Now, as you can see here, this was the initial initial demand and the initial supply, and this was the equilibrium price over there. Now, when a lot of when earlier it was there was a barrier to entry of firms into the auction market, so the price was over here. But then it was opened up. There was an open auction. So the demand increased and the demand curve, more number of firms started entering the market. So the demand curve shifted outwards, and to match that demand, the supply had to also increase, and the supply came somewhere over here, and the new equilibrium price was this. Now if you plot it, you see that the price actually reduced. So after the FCC opened up the sector and allowed new firms to come and bid, it actually led to a fall in the price. So as I mentioned earlier, the price actually fell from $6.2 million in 1987 to about $1.8 million in 1990. Now moving on to the third question. The question is, if the FCC had mandated that the price of a radio station should remain at about 6.2 million in 1990, would there have been a shortage of radio stations? Why or why not? Now, I would like to explain this with the help of the concept of present value. This is the formula for present value. As we all know, total revenue minus total cost divided by the discounting factor. Now we are concerned with these two, the present value and the total cost. Now the present value is the returns that the investors expect, after they buy those radio frequencies, and the total cost is the price fixed by the government for selling those rights. Now, if this actually fell from 6.2 to 1.8. Now, if the government wouldn't have reduced it and kept it at 6.2, so if it's fixed instead of being 1.8, this would reduce. Do you get it? Okay. Okay. Had this been 1.8 instead of 6.2, right now the question says that the government, if it would have fixed it at 6.2, then what would have happened in the market? Now, had it been lesser than 6.2, then this returns would have been more. Okay. So now that the government has kept it at 6.2 and not reduced it, this would be lesser to that extent. Okay. So it will be less lucrative for bidders. So less number of bidders would come into the market. And as the question has been asked, would there be a shortage or not? Well, there wouldn't be a shortage, there would be a surplus actually, because the demand would be less than the supply. That is, yeah, this is fixed. Assuming this is fixed, we are just altering these two. Yeah, this is the total cost. It's asking if it's 6.2. If it's fixed at 6.2, instead of letting the market forces play and reduce it to 1.8, what would be the effect on this? So it's very simple. Now moving on to question D, it says, would there be a surplus or not? Well, as I explained in question C, there would be a surplus. So that sums it up. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. A quick introduction of the case study. Basically, our case study was to do with the major events that affected the oil production. In the last century, in the 19th century, and I mean, a lot of these you would already know. There were oil crisis in 1973, the OPEC crisis. But so I'll quickly go over the incidents that were highlighted in the case study. The first was when they found the East Texas field in the U.S. and how the oil prices reduced drastically in the U.S. and because of that there was a increased supply. So there was a case, there was a sub case on that. Then we have production control. Okay, Surabhi, you want to take this up? Actually, this was Surabhi. She was out of the class.
I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. It's just a brief history of the oil production and its impact on world economy. I just want to go through the whole process. Impact of oil production on world economy actually started on 1930s when the East Texas field was explored, because at that point of time with this new field when it was found, the demand was supply was increased and the demand actually it has reduced the prices of oil, and the first time this has impacted on the prices of oil, and because of that government has actually like US and UK government actually banned these fields for production just to control the prices of oil. Then again in 60s and 50s prices were controlled by the number of days oil exploration was allowed. In 1973 there was a major oil crisis happened when the OPEC countries actually controlled the oil prices by reducing the supply of oil. That was the first time OPEC countries have actually used their power and had a huge impact on world economy, and it has impact as a stagflation, which we say that inflation plus unemployment. That was a time when all the countries were growing, development was happening, and it has impact on all the countries on their economies. And then in at that point of time, actually world economies were not able to face this problem, and they actually suffered it because of the increase in oil prices. But again, when in 1979 oil prices actually increased, there were options where economies were more ready to face the problem. In sense of there was cross price elasticity in terms of substitutes were available. Like initially it was heating oil, then they have actually replaced to coal and other energy production options. And again, they reduced the consumption of oil in 1979. So actually from 1979, oil prices have started reducing, and the control of OPEC countries are actually reduced. Their oil share was 2/3 of the whole oil production, but after around in mid 80s, it's actually reduced to 1/2. So this is a brief thing. I just want to show you the graph. We can see this in this graph. This is the oil prices. See, till 1970s, oil prices were less, and actually increased too much. Okay. Now this is the oil demand, which was demand which was increasing, consumption was increasing, but because of the increase of oil prices, the consumption actually started decreasing, and this is how the prices of oil prices actually started reducing. This is the reason for reduction in oil prices. So this is the thing, and so that's it. I just we'll move into the questions because time is less. Roll number 79, 079. BM 079.
Good afternoon, friends. Sorry. Just give me 2 seconds, please. Yeah. Not that.
Time is money.
Never mind. Presentation the new one. This is the old one. No, one second. Probably I would request the next person to come in so that we can take this part later.
भी नहीं है
क्यों?
नहीं पूछ रहा हूँ वापस जाना नेक्स्ट बंदे को बुलाना
He knows it.
कहीं नहीं जा रहा है जितना बता सकते जल्दी जल्दी बता दूँ मैं एक ही बात है
Hello. Good morning, everybody. Wake up.
चल शुरू का टाइम वेस्ट
So we start with the second question. This is the basic data that's been given in the question. We have the supply curve. This is a question basically where OPEC does some curtailment in their supply. So we have the quantity supplied equation before curtailment. The second is the quantity supplied equation after curtailment, and the demand remains same. Demand curve remains same before as well as the after the curtailment. From these three equations, we can find the price at the equilibrium point before curtailment and the quantity also, and also after the curtailment. So we find that. So the price before curtailment, the equilibrium price before curtailment comes to 4, and the quantity demanded comes to 8. Now the part A of the question, which the part A is just to find the percentage reduction in total quantity after the curtailment that actually OPEC countries have done. For that, we use the second equation, which is the equation for quantity supplied after curtailment. Just put the price in that and we get the quantity as 15. Therefore, the reduction we get is, earlier the quantity supplied was 18, now it's 15, so we get 3. In percentage terms, that's the answer of the question, which is 16.67%. The second part is to find the equilibrium price before as well as after curtailment. We can find it by equating the quantity demanded and the quantity supplied. That's the equilibrium point. So we equate those equations and we get at before curtailment the equation, the price is 4, and after curtailment it comes to rupees 10. The third part is to find the equilibrium quantity before curtailment and after curtailment. We have to just put the price in the quantity demanded equation, and we find that the equilibrium quantity before curtailment is 18, and after curtailment it comes to 16.5. Thank you. The rest of the questions Ankit would do it. IB086.
I want you I should be audible now. Okay, I'll go back to the previous questions. We need the values to calculate. My part is we have to calculate price elasticity of demand for short term. As we know, the formula for price elasticity is the percentage change in supply in quantity upon the percentage change in price. So before curtailment, we had the price as 4 and the price changed to 10 after curtailment. The quantity changed from 18 to 15. No, equilibrium we are talking about. So we'll use these two values, 18 and 15. So reduction in quantity is 3 and original quantity was 18. So percentage change we'll calculate by, with 3 by 18, and price change is 6 upon the original price. So we come to the value as 0.11, that is negative change. Now the other part of question says whether the short term elasticity is greater than or less than the long term elasticity. Long term elasticity is given as 0.4 and we got the value as 0.11. This shows that the elasticity is less in short term rather than long term.
And why this is less is in long term, then. Pardon? That's what I'm talking about. Yeah. There are a number of reasons, but we got some reasons documented here. One is due to research, you'll find out more substitutes. In short term, you may not be able to find substitutes, and you may not be efficient to find a replacement. But in long term, you can find substitutes. You can make more fuel efficient things. And third reason is other non-OPEC countries, that's given in the case study, they increased the export. So these are the three reasons why long-term elasticity is more. So actually, in long term, the change in quantity is much more than what it is in short term. I think this is it. Third part will be explained by Himanshu.
Good afternoon, friends. I will be discussing question 6.3, and it goes like this. After OPC announced it cut back in export of oil to the United States in late 1973, the first official estimate by US policymaker was that the US consumer would have to reduce their consumption by 20 to 30%. Now the question has three parts. The first part says ki 20 to 30% cut without rationing. So in a short run, the elasticity of demand is less than 1, as discussed by Ankit just now. So the increase in price will not affect the quantity of consumption considerably. So hence, to cut down on the consumption, we need to decrease the supply. So we have a graph for it. This red we have to decrease the supply for it. Hence, in this way, we can reduce the consumption. The second part of the question is how big a price increase was required to cut the consumption by 25%. Now this is the E. We have been given the elasticity, that is 0.3. We have been given the change of quantity as the 25%. We just need to find out the change in the price. So by putting this formula, we can find the change in price, and which comes out to be 83%. So that means if we want to reduce the quantity by 25%, we need to increase the price by 83%. The third part of the question is, did the price of gasoline rise in the next few years as much as indicated in B? Now we can see from this table, taking 1973 price as the base in the 74, 75, 76, we can see that the price is not risen to the level of what we have calculated, that was 83%. It is much below it. The reason for the same is in 1975 the US came up with a policy of doubling the car efficiencies which they were using. New sources were developed, like new sources of oil were found out, like Mexico and Alaska. And exporting countries increased from the countries like Egypt and Malaysia. But you can see in the last two places that in 79 and 80 the price has increased dramatically, like so it is 1115 and 198, and this is due to the Iran revolution which took place in 79 and 80. Let's complete the third question. Thank you. 66. This one, na? Yeah. No, the percentage increase in price, which is the third column, this one. This one. So with respect to 1973 price, the rise is 198% for 1980. Yeah, I told you, like the huge rise was just because of that Iran revolution which took place. In that, they curtailed on the oil supply at that point in time. So when the oil supply was reduced. I mean, they did not supply oil because there was some problem with Iran. That's why the
revolution in Iran,
yeah.
in which the owner was thrown.
Hello. Okay, so we'll move over to question 4 now. Okay. The question pretty much says that there's a female Catherine. She's earning about $25,000 per year, and she has to decide how to allocate her income between gasoline and goods other than gasoline. So the first question is, how many gallons of gasoline would Ms. Mueller have liked to purchase per year? So as the indifference curve shows here, she would have ideally liked to purchase somewhere along the line of 1, somewhere along this line and that line, but because she is limited by her budget constraint, which is BT, the best thing that she can get here is the intersection between B and the 4. So the number of gasoline, the amount of gas, the gallons of gasoline she would like to purchase is 4 in this question. Moving on to B part, it says if she only could obtain 1900 gallons of gasoline, then would her budget line change or would it remain the same? So if she can only purchase about 1900 gallons, that essentially means that she has less money to spend on gasoline and more money to spend on goods other than gasoline. So her budget line, instead of going at BD, it'll change from BD and it'll move to BD-1. So it'll move towards the left. And then the third part, it says what was the highest indifference curve that she could reach, and whether this a higher or lower indifference curve, whether this was a higher or lower indifference curve than the previous one. So the highest indifference curve that she could reach was 2, but if you compare it with the previous indifference curve, this was lower than the indifference curve 1. And the last part, it says whether it gives an example that rural motorist had to wait in line longer than urban motorist, and how did it affect the elasticity of demand for gasoline in rural areas. So this essentially means that because rural motorists did not have a shortage of time, so they could end up spending more time at the gas stations. So the price of gasoline was more so inelastic for them, and because urban motorists' time was of more value to them, that's why it was an elastic gasoline demand. I would say pretty much because they had plentiful time, and as the price in this case is measured in terms of the time value.
Yes, but why the elasticity will be more for the other motorists?
Yeah, because the usage of consumption of gasoline will be more there in the urban.
Then it should be the other way around, isn't it?
Right?
No.
More, you'll be less price sensitive or more price sensitive? You are actually less price sensitive, isn't it? Because you already are so dependent on the car that you don't have much of a choice. But what is also true, you have possibly carpooling in urban areas. In rural areas, you cannot do carpooling. That way, let's go together because you're going in different directions because everybody is far out. In the urban area, everybody is similar. People from home to office to home. So you can
Let me give you a small introduction regarding this question. As for the question, 3 parts have been given. The first part is the US supply curve, and the second part is the US demand curve, and the third is the supply of the foreign oil. Just to give you a small introduction, there were import quotas at around 1979 in the US, which means that you can't import more than a particular quantity of oil. So in a way, this particular line, straight line, shows the supply of foreign oil, which shows that at any price you want to take, there's at any quantity, the price is 1.75. That's dollars per gallon, dollars per barrel, in fact. And as for the first point, it asks us whether the price of the foreign oil, of the US produced oil, is cheaper than the foreign oil. We can say no, it's the US. If you look at the curve, it shows that the intersection of the US demand and the supply, which is approximately at this point, gives you the consumption as well as the price at that point. So we can see that at that price, at that point, the price is 4.15 and the quantity is 4.35, which clearly shows that because the price of the foreign oil is 1.75, which is, we can see that the US oil is, the oil which is produced in the US, it is more expensive than the oil which has been imported. That's the first question. That's all? Chalo.
How we will find the demand of US and the it will be intersection, right?
Demand curve is there.
Yeah, demand curve is there, so what will be the consumption? Or the
Demand like will it be
equivalent or
मुझको लाइट चाहिए. Sorry for switching on the lights. The question is that the price of oil fell from $30 to $10 during the 1980s in spite of an increase in supply, and during the 1960s and the 1970s the supply increased but the price didn't show any reduction. Well, the reason for this is that during in the 1980s the supply increased due to the discovery of alternative modes of energy and oil supplies, plus there were discovery of oil fields like Prudhoe Bay and the North Sea. Is anyone listening?
talking and see talking. Door is open. It's not a regular class. You can leave. Okay?
Where was I? Okay. During the 1960s and the 1970s, the supply increased because of the discovery of oil fields like Prudhoe Bay and North Sea, but the price did not reduce because the increase in supply was compensated by the reduction in supply by the OPEC, which is the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries. I'm done. Okay, question.
IB096.
Just to give you a brief history of this question.